All right, guys, I am excited about today's video. Today's video is going to be the first in a long series where I'm going to take each and every one of my builds out of the city onto the build table, and I'm going to go in depth into each and every section, talk through the building techniques, the details, what inspired me to build that particular section, the color, the part usage, you name it. So let's get into it. So I'm really happy with how the fountain turned out. It's pretty minimal, and for a lot of my builds, I try to jam in as many details as I can. And this one, I didn't really take that approach. I really just wanted it to be simple, but I really like how the black chain with the bollards turned out. You can see that I've got the microphones in the top, as well as that kind of new cone with the pin piece, whatever piece that is. And then just some simple bricks and some transparent little water elements. So I really like how this one turned out. So this was a really fun one from a part usage standpoint. These slopes were great. I found them in my collection in sand green. Only had 4 on hand, so once I built out the first prototype, I ended up having to buy some more. I'll put the part number here on the screen, so if you want to check them out on Bricklink, go take a look. Again, also use the microphone pieces on the top, and I liked how those turned out. They're a fun accent piece. So if you do want to try building this umbrella, I've got some free instructions on my Rebrickable page. You can check the link down in the description. This is probably one of my favorite areas of the build. As you can see, I tried to jam in as much detail and texturing as I could with the dark orange ingots, with the blade sign, the little tan plates with the teeth, and the scrolls, and you've got the little triangle piece, whatever you want to call it, and then just the gray arch, the awning, the big shop window. I'm just really happy with how it all turned out. And then a little potted plant in front of it's kind of simple, but I wanted it to just accent it and not take away from all the detail on the wall. So in this section, I wanted a little more pop of color, so I used the white and yellow pieces for the awning and just add a little bit of green. Most of my builds have plants growing up the sides and they're pretty dense, but I wanted this one to be a little simplistic. I didn't want it to be too heavy, but I really like the pop of color with the yellow. So on this side of the building, you can see that I actually just did snot bricks with tiles and a few plates along the walls. Kind of different texture to just deviate a little bit from my typical texturing while I use masonry bricks and plates and ingots. I tried to mix it up a little bit and do some 1x1 plates and those little quarter tiles just to give a little bit more texturing. But this building was actually inspired by a building I saw on my last trip to Italy in the town of Saturnia. It was just a little kind of light pink building with the red awning. And then obviously you see bougainvillea, throughout, parts of the country. But this was a really fun one. I also used those brown zipline pieces you can see kind of wedged in there for a vine effect. They're really fun to work with, but they are tricky because to get them wedged in the right way, you kind of have to jam them in there. But really happy with how it turned out. So moving to the next side of the build, I was really happy with the usage of the clamshell piece here. When I bought it, I did not know what I was going to use it for, but I think it turned out pretty nice. I've got it connected actually to a Technique 1x2 brick and then to a snot brick in order to flip it upside down. So you can see too, I've used some different techniques for the potted plants. On your left there, you can see that I used a little backpack piece with the 1x2 rounded plate and then just used some clips to attach it to the railing. This technique was one I'm pretty proud of. I just kind of came up with it in my head, and really the 2 fence pieces are just connected to 2 snot bricks. And then I built a little windowsill and added some potted plants. And if you've ever been to Europe or been to Italy, you'll know, it's not uncommon to see windows kind of with the iron bars over them. And then obviously some potted plants. So this was one of my first forays into exterior illumination, and it was a good learning experience because I was able to find some nice techniques in order to hide the wire. Obviously you can still see some of it, but also understanding that these wires are pretty thin and pretty resilient. I use brick stuff lights, and so far I've found them to be the best quality. But you can see it just comes right out of that 1x1 cone and sits within that trans clear sort of helmet bulb piece. But I really like how it turned out with the little spike at the top and the black kind of swirl. So it was really fun, and the way I've hidden the wire in the wall, you can kind of see there is one of those quarter round tiles, and the wire just fits right in between. So if you're doing exterior lights, it's a really good piece to have on hand, so you can slip the wire through and it doesn't put too much stress on it. So this was the first wooden door I ever built, and since then I think I've advanced my techniques. You can see here it's really just a large plate with some ingots, 2 gold swirls, some jumpers, and those little brown kind of triangular spike pieces. This was inspired actually by our last trip to Florence, and I became infatuated with all the different wooden doors throughout the city, and it was kind of modeled after a few different ones that I saw. I'll be honest, I don't like the texturing so much on this side. It just feels a little messy, and it's the only area in the build in which I use dark bluish gray. It really just doesn't fit, but I liked adding the little red bike, so I thought I gave it a nice pop of color and a little contrast. I do not know why I added the shield piece, but at the time it seemed like a good idea, and that's what I'm sticking with. So here I tried to keep the same level of details throughout the rest of the build with the different textures and colors and plates and tiles and bricks, but I wanted to add a pop of color using the sand green windows and then some gray detailing. So I put the arches in, as well as the kind of curved sort of tile with the point. And then the sand green windows, it's a color that I just love. It's a fun one to use, and tried to add a little bit of accent in between the 2 windows. You can see the scroll pieces as well as the gray shield, just to give it a little bit of a breakup. And then, of course, obviously, I had to add an Italian flag. So the flag isn't perfect, but it stays up well enough. So I was pretty pleased with how this one kind of broke up just the tan expanse and some of the other parts of the building. So I try to add balconies in all of my builds, and the reason for this is that it's pretty fun to just put little minifigures out there. It makes the town feel a lot more alive. And I really like how this one turned out, because you've got the dark orange accent colors, which really aren't present anywhere else in the build, so it just kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. And then I was pretty excited. I found this cloth piece. I don't know what set it's from, but found it on Bricklink and decided I'll find a way to use it. And I actually like how it turned out. It's just kind of a little bit of an awning. So again, you can see I tried to jam as many details in here with the ingots and those kind of dark orange support columns. Next to the door is actually a big stack of 1x1 plates with the clips, and then just the fluted 2x2 circular bricks and the little 1x2 bricks with the divots. Everything is just intended to add more detail and kind of cram it in. And then obviously I had to add some potted plants, so I used that kind of nougat dome piece, turned it upside down, and used the sort of the donut tile, I think they're called. It's the 2x2 tiles with the hole in it, and then again another little backpack piece. Moving to the second level of the light nougat portion of the building, pretty simple. Again, just using the 1x2 tiles and the snot bricks. I did use some snot plates and a few unique pieces to try to achieve the potted plants, just because there's not enough room to really hang them off the 2x4 plates that I used as windowsills. And so I used some clips and these little 1x1 pin pieces. And then you can see the flowers have their angle from what I call the superhero piece, because they came out in the superhero minifigure sets, but kind of that curved or angled bar. And then obviously the bougainvillea, just to help kind of add a pop of color, which does end up wrapping around the building. So wrapping around the building, you can see again, I continued the bougainvillea. I used the lavender limb elements, medium lavender leaves, as well as the dark pink and light pink flower elements. And then used some angled pieces, again, the superhero piece, to give it some curvature. And then also some clips to attach it to the railings. Really happy with how the balcony turned out. It's really simple, but just kind of a typical wrought iron balcony. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, you can see a little bit better now, but I used the 1x2 rounded plates attached to the clips, and then that was how I attached the backpack to it. Typically I have a flower actually sitting in the backpack, but because of the angle and the weight of the flower, it falls off often, so it's not always in there. So this side of the building is still detailed and a lot of texturing, but a little less detailed than some of the other sides. You know, this brown shutter look is pretty common in Italy. You'll see a lot of brown shutters like this and a lot of tan buildings. So I wanted to keep it kind of simple. You know, obviously we've got the light gray gutter running down the side, and then again more ivy growing up because I just kind of have a thing for plants growing up. But this building was inspired by another one we saw on our last trip to Italy. It kind of had the brown shutters and it was alternating, so they weren't in the exact same spot going up and down. So I always like to try to pull some real life inspiration from our travels just to, you know, kind of have a memory of the trip in my own town. But again, pretty happy with how it turned out. Simple, but still adds a nice effect and some detail. Moving back to the front side of the building, I'm actually really happy with this section because I wanted to add some kind of black accent, sort of like, you know, a little iron detailing. And I really love these little lattice window frames, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get them in there. And then I figured out that they actually fit right into the 1x2 grill pieces. They're a little loose, so if you jiggle the build, they'll kind of come loose. But I really like how it turned out, and then just threw a couple of the potted plants back there. With the 1x1 open stud plate, and then some of these little, I think they're like a sword element, but I thought it looked pretty nice. Now moving to the first roof section of the build, I hate building roofs. I find them to be difficult, challenging, and not fun, and this terracotta style roof is no exception. This one wasn't the worst. It's really just held in. I just kind of drop it in, and there's kind of a groove that I've built on the backside. That plate you see there is actually a 2x6 or 2x8, I think. And there's a little brick on the other side that just kind of fits in place. So I like the contrast. It sits nicely with the rest of the build. And I've used some of the little 1x1 tiles just to cap it off. But yeah, roofs are tough. And just so you can see the second level of the pink side of the building a little bit better. Again, very similar to the previous level. You've got potted plants, same style of railing, same landscaping. You got the clamshell, but a little bit of gray detailing just to give it a little accent. And again, like I said, I like the little balconies. It's fun. It makes it feel a little more active, feel a little more lived in. As someone who doesn't put a lot of minifigures in my cities, I do try to put them on the balconies. So on to the first major roof section. I'll be honest, these are not well built. They are attached with hinge plates. They're super delicate. I probably have 12 hours just into the roof section of this build alone. It was a pain, but I am happy with how the little chimney turned out. When I was building this roof, I knew I wasn't going to do a corner roof on this side, so I needed something to kind of fill the space. And I kind of like how it turned out. It's pretty simple, but you know, kind of tried to pull some inspiration from real life chimneys and roof detailing you see throughout Italy and throughout Europe. So happy with how it turned out, but again, this roof was an absolute nightmare. Another part of the roof that I was pretty happy about was this little TV antenna. It actually uses two pieces from one Super Mario set, of which I don't own any of, but bought them off Bricklink, and really happy with how the detailing turned out on it. In addition to putting minifigures on the balconies of my builds, I also like to create little rooftop scenes, again, just to activate the overall landscape. And as someone who's passionate about eating pizza and drinking wine in Italy, I had to put somebody on the roof doing just that. So you can see the table I built is not very well built, as you know, you can see that one little jumper is kind of sitting a little bit off. But I like how it turned out. Again, I tried to keep the same theme with the balcony down below with the dark orange tiling. I used one of the dark orange potted plant minifigure pieces from the CMF series, which was kind of fun. And again, just tried to fill it with some lush landscaping. And of course, no Italian rooftop is complete without a hanging clothesline and a laundry rack. I do know that it is kind of weird having the yellow leg pieces there. A number of people have pointed out on Instagram and TikTok that it looks like he's hanging out body parts, but I should probably change it, but I don't know. I kind of like the way it is for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Definitely a much longer video than I'm used to making, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions about the build. Like I said, this will be a reoccurring series, so next up will be the bakery, so keep a lookout for that next video, and we'll see you next time.